Greetings, welcome to thctrust.org. This is just a general discussion, and I'm going to keep this video pretty general and YouTube friendly. I want to talk about the importance of nationalizing and what it means to be a part of a nation. Well, one thing that typically happens to a lot of black people, black American, for lack of a better term, because that's not what we are, but people have been identified as black American men, and a lot of them are finding themselves in prison and locked up. And I just want to point some things out. Um, First off, an American, or an African American especially, is not a nationality. So when you see like forms and they say put your nationality on here, African American is not a nationality. It's a concept that's not even 30 years old. Well, why is this important? Because without a nationality, you're not even recognized as being a human being. Nations, like think about the United Nations and the League of Nations. Nations meet, and through diplomacy sometimes, they conduct affairs and business. But if you're going around with the classification and saying that you're African American, well, that has nothing to do with any kind of entitlement, and it has nothing to do with being indigenous or being an heir to any particular land. So essentially, what you are is you're just a part of a commercial system, you're a part of a contract, and that's it. And it's through the subversive use of contracts, that's what allows people to get locked up and to have their property taken from them and to be mishandled and mistreated, and to be treated like property, pretty much, because that's what you are. You have no recognition in the real world, if you will, because every time somebody asks you who you are, the only thing you have to establish yourself is some form of contract that someone else imposed upon you, that you've made or that you've learned to accept as being you. And now I'm going to make this even simple. I'm going to back up a lot of what I'm going to say right now. A lot of you already understand what I'm talking about, but I'm sure somebody brand new is watching this video and doesn't quite understand what I'm talking about. Basically, what I'm saying is the reason why people exert control and authority over you, the reason why you are forced to require to follow statutory laws, which basically means whatever law they write is the law that you have to practice, is because you are a piece of property, to them. And I say them and they, because there really is no them or they, but there is, well, there is a them and they. But what I want to say is there are people that's using this commercial system to control you through your corporate vessel. And your corporate vessel is your name. And if you don't understand what I'm saying, if I ask you what's your name and you tell me something and I say no, it's not, prove it. If the first thing you're digging for is a state ID or even some other documentary form to establish and certify who you are that was delivered to you by the state, that's what I'm talking about. That's and I know I'm probably overkilling this, but I know some people are just waking up to this every day, and it typically happens when somebody has some, here, perfect example. I had a lady call me and got pulled over, routine traffic stop. Professional woman, professional business, family lady, has children, very respectable. But what happened is she didn't know her license was suspended. Some technical thing or some administrative thing, who knows? But she ended up being drugged, um, manhandled pretty harshly, thrown in the back of a wagon, and spending some nights, or at least one night, in jail. That's just one story. I got a call from another guy, another professional man, had his own business. Long story short, and he's still not completely aware of what happened and why, but he was um, pulling into his driveway, getting out of his car, when all of a sudden a cruiser pulled up, said stop, and some kind of way it ended up in him getting beat up in his own driveway. And these people really couldn't understand, like, well, they violated my rights, and they didn't understand that they didn't have rights, and what they were involved in was a commercial system. And legal rights are not rights. Civil rights are not rights. Those are contract rights. Now, anyways, let me go ahead and get on the subject, or stay on the subject. I feel that right now is very important that you have an identity outside of the commercial system. And because typically what goes on before you can get locked up, before you get a ticket, before anything happens with you, the first question comes is identify yourself. Really, that question is, we're trying to see if we have jurisdiction to attach commercial obligations to you, or are you non-existent in our world? So again, if the only way you identify yourself is with what has been given to you from the commercial system, then you're a slave to that system. And if that's you and you don't really like your circumstances, then you need to start learning how to distance yourself. And honestly, you don't have much time. And if you want to know more about how you can do that, we have a website, www.thctrust.org, which you can also find a wealth of information that we're still updating today. But if this is completely foreign and you're really behind the power curve, and I'm not trying to say this to scare you, just get started, and then you're ahead of a lot of other people. But this is a wake-up age. So now, how does this pertain to somebody that's locked up? This is something I really wanted to get to. I don't know if I'm gonna have the time to. Well, I know I will have the time, but I don't know how soon I can get this information on the website. But the first thing someone needs if they're incarcerated or in jail or in prison, they need somebody to assist them getting their declaratory status as either an indigenous sovereign, and I really recommend they declare them, they nationalize as being a Moorish American, which is their birthright. But you have to get that documentation in the public record certifying that you are outside of the commercial system, that you are not a United States citizen bound and tied to those commercial obligations, because that is the root. That is the root of all the charges that they attach to you. You are serving as surety for debt obligations, is what it is. So, and I can't even begin to go into this video about the whole way the entire method to attack it, but I will tell you this. I'll let the information out as people ask me, or as I have an opportunity to, but I'm telling you right now that the start is you have to pull that body, that physical vessel that's serving as surety, you have to pull him out the jurisdiction. He cannot serve collateral for a commercial obligation because he's an heir and a title holder on the land. But he can't even be that until a declaration is made. Until he confesses with his mouth, then he's nothing. If you're just silent, which you basically, if you don't have anything on the record, it's looked at as you're silent, right? Doesn't that statue, I think, that stands in front of the courthouse have something over its ears too? I know something's over its eyes. But either way, they can't see you, and they can't hear you unless it's on the record. So that's the important first part. That is the first part. And then is, because see, the thing is, once you establish as being indigenous or heir to the land, you have an exemption, and it doesn't come from HJR 192 and Public Law 7310. Although that's still there too, you just have a commercial exemption because we're in a whole different jurisdiction, and we're heirs to everything on the land. Everything on the land, everything that's in the Americas or wherever your feet is placed, including the commercial paper and all the obligations, that's your property. So that's where your exemption comes in from there. and you can still do your acceptance for value and all that type of stuff. But you have to be able to pull yourself out of the jurisdiction and be protected, which again is why I recommend. When I say protected, I mean you don't want to be labeled any kind of terrorist or some other type of group that's targeted. Um, the Morocco Peace and Friendship Treaty with the United States of America is the longest standing treaty that's still in effect today. Yep. Now you can write your own peace treaty. You know, I wouldn't recommend you reinvent the wheel, but if that's what you have to do, that's what you do. But at the same time, I will just say, I know some people that didn't work out too well for. Anyways, make sure you guys visit the site where you can get more in-depth information. www.thctrust.org. Thank you for watching.